I guess we better. Yeah. So welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us for one of our lunch and learns. And it is a lunch and learn. So if you want to turn on your camera while you're still eating, you will not be penalized for that. There are a few of us who are still munching. So glad you took this time to join us. This is a super important topic that I think a lot of organizations are dealing with some change about as a result of what we have been experiencing through the pandemic. So I'd like to introduce you to our presenter, Cecilia Piazza. And Cecilia is the Vice President of Member Services of First Nonprofit. And First Nonprofit is a longtime sponsor partner with Vision Serve Alliance and many of our members. And this is actually one of our benefits for being a member. It's not offered to non-members, and you can save some money and get some really good services in the process. So today you're going to hear Cecilia's tips on the short and long impact of COVID-19 and what you might want to change about your unemployment program. So with that, Cecilia, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Lee. And thank you, Wendy and Vision Serve Alliance for co-hosting this seminar today, this webinar. It's good to see everyone virtually. You will receive a copy of the slides. So after this presentation, if you want to review them, feel free. I will go through them. And then hopefully we'll have a bit of time for some questions. As Lee mentioned, I'm Cecilia Piazza. I'm the Vice President here at Member Services of First Nonprofit. We have been working with nonprofits for over 20 years, and I have been there essentially since the beginning. I will be going on my 23rd year next year. COVID really has did just a tailspin for us in the unemployment realm with all of the changes. So I know that those of you on the call are from different states, and unemployment does vary state by state. So I am going to be a little bit broad in my explanation on some things, but you'll have my contact information, and feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have a specific question related to unemployment. And then we'll also have an application that Wendy will be sending out if you're interested in finding out more information and how to participate in one of our programs that's exclusively for nonprofits. And through VSA, VSA members do receive an additional discount as well. So I just want to go ahead and get started. Just to let you know, I know there's been so many numbers going around and they keep changing. But the federal government has spent over $650 billion on unemployment since the pandemic started. And there were so many different changes that occurred to handle everyone staying from home. So they added benefits to people that previously would be denied unemployment. And the term is gig workers. Those of you who are not familiar with what that means, those are folks that were like independent contractors, Uber drivers, real estate agents, people that were, independent, not necessarily connected with an employer, and typically would pay for their own unemployment. But due to the pandemic, they were all eligible to receive unemployment. And then last year, with the American Recovery Act, there was $600 added every week on top of that from the federal government. That expired in July. And then this year, the American Recovery Act added $300 per week. It started in April, and it's now finished, September 6th. You may have seen, a little bit of politics back and forth that some states were pulling out of the $300 per week a little bit prematurely instead of going through the whole September. And that was determined by each governor. They were allowed to do that However, now everything is ended. It's past September 6th. There's no additional benefits that are being provided. The independent contractors and the gig workers, also their unemployment should be ending. Everything should be reverting back to the normal rules and regulations prior to COVID. As far as, you know, the fraud, I know that a lot of people, myself, I was even compromised. There was so much money and not a lot of rules, and the states are not very tech savvy, unfortunately, when this hit. So fraud cases really went up across the country. And this is just what's been reported so far through June 30th, the improper payments by state. So if you're from a state that's in red, then that means that 13% of the time, at least or greater, they were overpaying people, paying the wrong people, overcharging the employer, just a big mess. So that's why the federal government did pick up a lot of these costs for the states. But it was very hard for them to track the information. And then here is just a recent balance I've got updated for you from September 10th of the states that have taken out loans from the federal government on top of the money that the federal government has given them, because the states weren't flush with enough cash to handle this type of pandemic. And so you can see there the billions of dollars that are outstanding in loans. And so what's going to happen for those employers in those states particularly is that they're going to have to raise revenue. And by doing that, they raise their state unemployment tax. And so if you're paying this state unemployment tax, which is also called SUTA, then there's a good chance that you are going to have an increase next year on your rate. But the reason why we're having this call, and the great thing for you all, is that you are nonprofit employers, specifically 501c3 employers. You actually have a choice. You can decide if you want to pay the SUTA tax or if you want to do what's called reimburse. Reimbursing essentially is called also being self-insured. Many people are becoming more familiar with that as healthcare options really have expanded. But just know that you do have this choice, and there is an application period that each state has for nonprofits. And the deadlines will be coming up at the end of this year. So this webinar is very timely in the fact that if you do want to look at your cost options related to unemployment, then the next 90 days is really when you want to look at these options. You do have to have a valid 501c3 and you have to be in good standing. Know that when you are paying the tax, you are in a pool with all the other employers in your state, the for-profits, Walmart, hotel chains, retail, everything. But when you switch to being self-insured, then the state will only send you bills for your own individuals that have left your agency, so your own former employees. And that's definitely a much smaller piece of the pie to budget out and forecast. You're also putting money into a non-refundable reserve when you're in the tax method, because the state has to use all of its dollars to pay for the debt, as you saw, and then also for those employers that at the higher tax rate, they can't tax them anymore. They might be paying $1 million every year in taxes, but they can't tax them anymore. So the state has to use its pool of revenue. And self-insured is really the best option that we have seen for nonprofits in the long term. This is a section of the Internal Revenue Code that relates to unemployment, and the highlighted section essentially says that as long as you are 501c3, the state has to give you the option to choose to be reimbursing. And that's really the premise of our program, how we've designed to help nonprofits with their unemployment costs. If you're tax paying, you're definitely eligible. If you are already self-insured and handling unemployment on your own, you're definitely eligible. You do have to be in good status, as I mentioned. Government entities are eligible, and Native American entities are also eligible for this. And so, you know, how can you really find out if your agency is going to save money? Well, there are a few different ways. I have on the right side of the screen a copy of a sample of a New York tax rate notice. And if you just look at the top there, you'll see it says employer balance. Might be a little bit small, but it's about over $100,000 that this employer had. Now, what that means is that it's not a proprietary balance just for this particular nonprofit. That's just a recording of how much they have paid into unemployment for all the years that they've been paying, less what the state has paid out. So you could also look at that in another way and say, wow, that's how much I have paid in unemployment insurance to the state that we didn't use. So normal contributions for that particular agency were about $27,000. And then in B, you'll see $16,000 of actual payments were paid out by the state. And then the state will come up with a rate based on your average payroll. That account balance is never refunded to you. There's no way you can ever get that money back. And you always will have a rate. We have seen some nonprofits have millions of dollars in a balance. And, you know, unfortunately, if you think about maybe your car insurance or something like that, you know, how much you're paying for that. And if you wanted to see that 20, 30 years out versus how many claims you've filed, you probably wouldn't want to see that balance either. But that is money that the state gets to keep. So the reason why Congress gave nonprofits the option to reimburse was so that you could put your dollars towards your mission and not have it sitting in different state unemployment agencies' pool coffers. Because of the pandemic, a lot of the states have switched to online. So I have just, you know, if you go to your state, go to your unemployment website. If you haven't signed up yet, maybe your bookkeeper has, or your accountant has access to that, log into your unemployment portal at that state and print out your rate notice. If you're not familiar with what it looks like, I can send you a sample from your state. And you can just look at that, and it's not rocket science or anything like that. You'll just be able to just do a simple calculation, and you can see if your payments have traditionally always been higher than your benefits, then you would definitely are a good candidate to switch to reimbursing. And because of COVID, all nonprofits are good candidates right now to switch to reimbursing, because the ceiling has fallen and the states are going to have to raise revenue. They're talking about raising the wage bases in some states and changing their tax rate schedules completely. So it is a very good time to look at this option. The amounts that you can save vary. We've seen some agencies save as little as a few $100s every year to several thousands of dollars. And what we would do is help you look at your prior claims activity through those rate notices or your actual charges that you can print out, and that will determine what the savings is. If there's no savings for your agency, we're also going to tell you that. This is a sample of what one of our quotes looks like. I know it's got the older dates on here, but I wanted to show one with a VSA member discount. And so this particular agency was paying almost $60,000 in unemployment, and they would pay $47,000 with First Nonprofit, and at the same time build their own reserve. You see a reserve deposit. So unlike the state agency where they keep your money and you'll never be able to access that money, our program allows you to build your own reserve that belongs to your agency, and you can use it for future unemployment claims. If you ever leave First Nonprofit's program, you can take your money with you. That's the point of having a proprietary reserve. And what we also offer is claims management savings. And I know that there have been so many issues with folks handling unemployment claims by themselves this year. It's very hard. We partner with different claims providers around the country, and you will have a dedicated unemployment team that can help you if someone is, you have to fire someone for misconduct. You catch them sleeping on the job, or they come in intoxicated, or they come in high, which is a new thing, or there's cyber security, issues with that individual. Lots of topics, and that can now really have a huge impact on your unemployment. And the unemployment benefits are going to increase as well. We have a different, with COVID and the pandemic, costs have really risen. And so the cost of living is going to adjust, and the unemployment benefits are going to go with that too. They are going to continue to increase as we keep up with the cost of living. So all that being said, what we'll do is we'll provide you with a quote. If we can't save you any money, instead of a savings like this one shows, it would show a cost. And we tell you exactly what our program costs are. So everything is outlined for you, and we bill you in 4 equal installments, which increases your cash flow as well. And then like in this example, we have for this account that we would pay $25,825 for their unemployment charges. However, if their unemployment came in less than that, then that money would go to the reserve. So it's not lost. And then their reserve balance would be more than what we have projected. That we also show a claim savings, because once you come on board with us and you have the assistance of getting our education and our experts representing your agency at an unemployment hearing, you don't have to do it yourself any longer. You don't have to contract out with a lawyer or an attorney. We are going to handle that process with you. There's an additional savings from those determinations going in your favor. And then these reserves are invested as well. We use BlackRock and Merrill Lynch to invest the funds. And all of our members receive statements, and they have online access to look at their account balance and their activity through our portal. And then here, what we would do is we would send out a quote, and we'd let you know, well, so we're going to ask you to deposit a certain amount of money. And then there's a layer of insurance that is above and beyond your charges. So I can definitely tell you that our nonprofits in our program definitely hit the insurance this year because of COVID. And so if First Nonprofit hadn't been there with that layer of insurance and they were self-insured on their own, they would have had to pay out hundreds of thousands of dollars back to the state for the unemployment claims. So First Nonprofit realizes that you definitely want to have a safety net, and that's what the tax rate provides. And we do that for each member through a safety net with our insurance coverage. So you get that as well. And I would say the average savings right now is 35%, but I think that's pretty low. It could be as high as 60% for some people, depending on your state. We will represent you on claims and hearings. As I said, we do have a portal so that you can review your unemployment balance. There's no pooling. So what happens with any of our other nonprofits isn't going to affect your cost. And the most important thing is there's no change for your employees. Your employees are still going to receive their benefits from the state unemployment agency. We work with the state unemployment agency. So if the unemployment office determines after protests and after everything else that this individual should receive benefits, we will make sure that those benefits are audited and that you're charged the correct amount of money. And then we'll make the payment to the state unemployment office on your behalf. So that's how the paperwork flows, and the financial risks changes from your cost to now our responsibility to manage. And we would represent you on all unemployment issues. As I said, VSA members receive an additional discount as well. Along with Vision Serve Alliance, we are recognized in these various other states by these other nonprofit state associations. So Prevent Blindness, we've got with Goodwill, just lots of different types of nonprofits that we work with. 2,100 clients nationwide. And we do have just a few testimonials from some VSA members in particular. Insight and preschool services in Louisville. They're very happy with how much money that they've been able to save with us. And so we're very happy to help them. As I mentioned, we do have an application that Wendy will be sending out, and the next 90 days is really your time frame to get that to us. What we would need would be the application and also copies of your tax rate notices. If you're not sure where to find those, you can also reach out to your payroll provider, their ADP, Paylocity. They should have a copy of that rate notice. The annual one, not the quarterly, is what we would need to see. And the application is free and the quote is free. There's no obligation to sign up, but it definitely is an excellent opportunity for you to check into. You can not only save money, but you can be rest assured that your unemployment claims are being managed. We managed over 60 million claims last year through our different partners that we work with. We have 5 different claims TPAs across the country that we work with. So each time zone is represented by the appropriate claims provider. And so, you know, this is all we do at First Nonprofit, and we definitely like to help you as well. If you have any questions, you can feel free to just reach me. There's my full contact information, but it will also be available to you after the webinar. I went through the slides pretty quickly because I'm concerned about our time, but I did want to make sure that we had enough time for any specific questions.
If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question. I have also put the link to download the application in the chat. Again, this is an application to get your free quote.
Okay. You have any questions, Wendy?
No, great presentation. Wow, I can only imagine how busy you and your claims teams were last year.
Yeah, that's very, I mean, still continuing. I think, you know, for the biggest piece was just every state was doing its own unemployment program and kind of taking some bits and pieces from the feds and choosing not to take some other pieces. So that was a little bit of a challenge, so that nonprofits knew what to expect for their employees. And there was a lot of fraud.
Wow. I have a quick question for you. What about an association or a member or a nonprofit that's nationwide?
Yes, so definitely we can work with them. Usually they just have their, headquarters or main headquarters with most of their employees. And what we would do is we would review every single state where they have employees and see how cost effective it is for them to switch. If they only have maybe one or two or, a handful of employees in a particular state, then, paying the tax might be reasonable for them to stay doing that, but we can definitely work with an employer who is in multi-states. And our claims administrators are familiar with every single state, and so that's not an issue either.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, let's see. I thank you so much for coming here today and talking about this. Again, if you have any questions, Cecilia's contact is on the screen there, cpiazza@firstnonprofit.com, and you can reach out to her. We'll send the recording of this presentation along with the slides and a link to the application probably by tomorrow. Lee, did you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I just want to thank you, Cecilia, and encourage you all to spread the word about this opportunity with others who are concerned with HR unemployment in their organizations and in your network. I think it is a good opportunity, and believe that many of our members still, it's not on their radar. So let's get that word out there. It could benefit a lot of our organizations.
Most definitely.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.